so long ago, once you got an open parachute above your head, the risk of being injured or killed on landing was pretty small. Round parachutes, as well as the first ram air parachutes, descended slowly with very little forward speed. Most jumpers thought of the parachute only as a piece of equipment necessary to survive the free fall. Times changed, and so did canopy designs. Jumpers are now flying and landing parachutes that would have been considered too small to land only a few years ago. Unfortunately, canopy training and education hasn't progressed as fast as the canopy designs, and canopy accidents began to increase sharply from the early 90s to now. Beginning in the year 2000, a small number of jumpers began to focus on advanced training for canopy flight, and interest in teaching and learning more about canopy flight is growing each year. Now more information is available than ever before, but the statistics clearly show that many jumpers, regardless of experience level, need to learn more about piloting their canopies, and not enough are taking advantage of structured training to improve their canopy skills. Hi, I'm Sherry Butcher, the Mideastern Regional Director for the United States Parachute Association and member of the USPA Safety and Training Committee. During the April 2005 Canopy Piloting Grand Prix, a canopy piloting competition in Paris, California, USPA visited with some of the most recognized experts in canopy flight and coaching. The interview included 5 of the 6 men from the 2005 U.S. Canopy Piloting Team: Ian Bobo, Clint Clausen, Shannon Pilcher, Jim Slayton, Jonathan Tagle. In addition to that, they spoke with Kaz Shiki, who is arguably the world's top female canopy piloting competitor. Collectively, this group has tens of thousands of jumps and decades of experience, much of which has been focused solely on canopy flight. They are parachute test jumpers and professional canopy coaches, spending time between competitions with jumpers of all experience levels to improve their canopy skills. The interviews revealed 6 points that every skydiver needs to consider, regardless of experience level. So let's check out what they have to say. Many jumpers have used coaching to improve their free fall skills, so it only makes sense to use coaching to improve your canopy flying too. Whether you are a student or a jumper with thousands of jumps, everyone can improve their canopy skills by working with a professional canopy coach in a structured canopy skills course. If you can't make it to a canopy school, you can always seek out a knowledgeable local expert to work with you. A local expert and Section 6-10 and 6-11 of the USPA Skydiver's Information Manual make a great place to start.
Well, there's a lot of important factors involved with getting canopy coaching, and there's many. But the ones that come to mind are, for one, you don't know exactly, most likely you don't know exactly what you should be working on, and more importantly, you don't know how you should go about executing these different performance drills to train. So by getting canopy coaching, you have an experienced canopy pilot guiding you along and giving you feedback, just like we do in every other skydiving discipline.
I think it's important that people recognize whether you're a 100 jump person or 2,000 jump person, that that canopy skills have been neglected over the last decade, the last 2 decades, and that it seems like just in the last 2-3 years, as the technology has quickly advanced, that there is a lot better information out there that we can all benefit from.
Somewhere along the line, as canopies got smaller, the first-time buyers were left with fewer and fewer choices for reasonably sized main canopies. As a result, newly licensed skydivers are showing up at the drop zone with their first canopy that someone may have told them was reasonable for their weight and experience level, when it is really too small for them to begin with. The incident reports USPA receives prove that many jumpers are in over their heads, jumping a canopy that is too small and fast for them to handle in a tough situation.
Smaller canopies, even if they're loaded very lightly, will roll with very little input. just because of the nature of their size and the physics of where the jumper is under the wing. So it's a common misconception that light people should stay with 1-to-1 and they'll be fine. But I think they should be even more conservative when they're light. Stay on the high side longer, maybe than you would think. Even a bigger jumper would need to stay on a light loading. Stay at 0.8, 0.9, whatever it is, to get to know the canopies and get to know these characteristics, because they're just generally smaller wing will be more responsive.
It takes more than a handful of jumps to really know a parachute, especially in a tight situation like heavy traffic in the landing area or an off-field landing.
We need to have explored all flight modes and explored the range of those flight modes to their extent. So the way I look at it is brakes. Using your brakes, you have full flight all the way down to full flare just before a stall, and even including the stall. And then you have rear risers, just hands on the rears and exploring the different ways that the rear risers manipulate the wing and how it affects the flight mode. And you can go through all different combinations of those. And then exercises that we use. And I guess, so the bottom line is that before we change wing loading, before we change canopy size, we need to explore those and be very proficient with our current wing in all situations.
As I progressed from canopy to canopy, downsizing, I would explore the full range of controls, once again getting familiar with that canopy and its full potential.
There's nothing like extra time under your canopy to help you learn more about it. More and more, we are seeing jumpers take advantage of exiting last and opening high, or making separate passes just to get out of the plane and get opened up right away with no other canopy traffic to contend with. Drills up high with a coach or solo jumps can go a long way towards really getting to know what your parachute can do. So if you're opening high, make sure the pilot and everyone else in the plane knows what you are doing before you exit.
Yeah, there's a lot of importance to just focusing on canopy piloting jumps, meaning whether you get out at 4,000 feet or you get out at 13,500 feet, getting out of the plane and just doing a clear and pull and getting under canopy right away is valuable, because just like any other type of relationship, the more time you spend with your canopy is the better you're going to be. Even if you can't afford a professional coach, even if you're not in a position to get one or you don't have the time, if you just organize your skydives where you're spending more time under your canopy, you're going to improve. It's just the way it is.
I was constantly using rear risers up high, preceded by high performance turns, using toggle inputs left and right, sometimes very aggressively, just to figure out, how stable is this canopy. Practicing level turns, carving turns up high as well. That gives you a really good feel for what the canopy can do and its full range as well. Just a whole range of different maneuvers.
Time under the wing is really what it comes down to. Just like free fall time, you get better at doing turns in place when you are in free fall, and you get more opportunities and more jumps to learn how to do that. Flying a canopy is no different. You just need to spend more time doing the activity. The only way to do that is to open higher and fly around and experiment with the wing. It's a largely overlooked area.
One of the most common challenges that all skydivers can face is traffic in the landing pattern. It can get busy in a hurry, and everyone needs to stay heads up. Different descent rates and forward speeds can close a large gap very quickly.
I think it's important that you respect the other canopies in a traffic pattern. You should definitely, at the minimum, start your pattern at 1,000 feet. You shouldn't be doing any turns or S. You should try not to do turns or S turns other than your planned pattern. under 1,000 feet. That way you can be predictable to other pilots. They can know what your pattern is. Usually most drop zones will have, say, a left-hand pattern or a right-hand pattern on landing. Make sure you check out what the drop zone's rules are and adhere to them. It's going to make it safer for you. It's going to make it safer for the large canopies, the small canopies. The more predictable you are, the less likely we're going to have the injuries that we've been seeing in the past.
I think it's important for everybody as far as traffic goes to understand flying a good pattern. And if everybody falls into a good pattern, it's very predictable for everybody to see what pattern is being set and fall into that pattern. I think it's important too to be able to fly your pattern in with different inputs, in full flight, in half brakes, or on rear risers, because you might use those different inputs in different scenarios to hold for people ahead of you, or to get down a little sooner than, rather than blocking up traffic behind you. And you need to fly your pattern in different inputs, so I think it's important that people get comfortable flying their pattern with different inputs.
You might need to abort your intended landing pattern in the main landing area, or you might need to land off the drop zone. Whichever the case may be, it's considered having an out, and it's something that each of us should be prepared for. The incident reports show that many landing accidents are the result of a regular, everyday jumper making an unintentional low turn while trying to avoid canopy traffic, or an obstacle on the ground such as power lines or a fence.
I think most jumps that we make, we don't explore even half of the range of our parachute. And again, I'll cite myself as an example. In the last few years, I've really learned to push my parachute to its extreme ranges. So very, very, very deep brakes, and then also like using rear risers and front risers to a new level. I'm not suggesting that everyone push those ranges to the extreme without supervision of some sort, but until we've done that, until we learn all the flight modes and we learn what they feel like, what they look like, and what they do relative to other canopies, specifically like Jim asked, like half brake flight, until we learn how our canopy behaves in that mode, then we're not going to know how to use that control mode when we need it. And I guess the biggest example that often comes up, and I think is what's killing people more than anything, is low turns, or abrupt low turns or unexpected low turns to the ground. So people landing off the drop zone, people encountering traffic, like the light pole or another canopy while they're on final, and then not knowing how to deal with that, so that they just simply react.
Having outs is pretty important. It should be part of your plan, especially if you're increasing the rate of your turn in your approach, starting to practice more high performance turns. You want to be able to practice those first up high, secondly closer to the ground once you've nailed them consistently up high, and when you are practicing them close to the ground, you want to practice them in an open area where you have several directions to land in, so that if you do have to cut your rate of turn down, you still have openings in order to land your canopy in straight and level flight. That may be crosswind, that may be downwind, but at least you'll have a straight line for you to land your canopy, and that's very important to have those outs.
Whether you are an experienced swooper or a new jumper working on the basics, you can learn more about flying a canopy and improve your skills with each new flight. The tools and the knowledge are out there, you just need to use them. Parachutes are flying faster and farther than ever before, and new designs and techniques are popping up every day. Work to improve all of your canopy skills, from the basic landing flare to defensive maneuvers to more advanced skills that are both fun and challenging. Fly to survive.